Bullies grabbed the black girl's collar. What she did shocked everyone. What would you do if a group of bullies grabbed you by the collar in front of everyone, mocking, humiliating, trying to break you? Most people freeze, but this black girl, she didn't freeze. What she did not only silenced the bullies, but left an entire school, and later an entire town, stunned. This isn't just a story about bullying. It's about courage, resilience, and the kind of strength that changes lives. Before we dive into this jaw-dropping journey full of twists you'll never see coming, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because you don't want to miss stories that grip your heart, shake your soul, and keep you on the edge until the very last word. It was a chilly autumn morning in a small American town, where the leaves crunched under the feet of teenagers making their way to Jefferson High, a school known less for its academic brilliance and more for the cruel hierarchies carved by its most ruthless students. And among those students, there was a group of notorious bullies led by Derek, a tall, broad-shouldered boy with a cruel smirk and an ego as inflated as his father's wallet. And alongside him were his shadows, Ricky, a wiry kid with sharp eyes always looking for trouble, and Mason, the silent yet intimidating type who laughed only when someone else was suffering. And into this environment walked Alana, a black girl with quiet strength in her eyes, the kind of girl most people overlooked, because she didn't flaunt expensive clothes. She didn't walk in with a crowd. She carried second-hand books, her backpack slightly torn at the strap, yet her presence was undeniable. Her voice calm when she answered teachers, her posture upright when she walked down the hallway. And it was exactly this silent confidence that the bullies hated the most, because while most students lowered their eyes and quickened their steps when Derek's crew approached, Alana never sped up, never looked down, never offered the nervous laugh that many others did. And this morning was no different until Derek spotted her by the lockers, her hand sliding a worn-out math textbook inside before shutting the squeaky metal door with a clang. And with a nod to his gang, he swaggered over, blocking her path, his friends circling like vultures, and without warning, Derek's hand shot forward, grabbing Alana's collar with a sharp jerk that yanked her slightly forward, causing the chatter of the hallway to die instantly. Gasps escaping from nearby students as eyes widened and footsteps slowed to watch the spectacle unfold. Because everyone knew what happened when Derek picked his target, it usually ended with humiliation, tears, and sometimes bruises. But Alana's reaction was unlike anything they had ever seen before. For instead of flinching, instead of letting fear twist her features, she looked him straight in the eye, her face calm, her voice steady, as she said something so unexpected that Derek's smirk faltered for the first time in memory. And in that single moment, the balance of power in the hallway began to tremble, setting off a chain of events that no one in Jefferson High, not even Alana herself, could have imagined. For this was not just the beginning of a confrontation, but the unraveling of secrets, the rise of courage, and the shocking revelation that even the strongest bullies carry hidden fears. And as the crowd leaned in, waiting for her next move, what Alana did next would not only shock them, it would haunt Derek and his crew forever. The hallway seemed to freeze in that moment, Derek's grip still clenched on Alana's collar, but his confidence shaken as her calm stare cut through his bravado. And instead of pleading or shrinking, she tilted her head slightly and with a voice that carried a strange, quiet authority said, "You think you're strong because you hold me like this? But real strength isn't in your hands, it's in how you stand when everyone's against you." And the words landed like a punch heavier than any fist, making Ricky blink, Mason shift uncomfortably, and even some of the onlookers murmur in disbelief, because no one had ever dared talk back to Derek this way. And for a moment his grip loosened, though his pride forced him to tighten it again. Yet Alana didn't resist, she didn't push back physically. She simply let the silence around them grow heavier until Derek realized every eye in that corridor was not laughing at her, but watching him, questioning him, and that realization stung. So he shoved her back roughly against the lockers, expecting a flinch. But Alana steadied herself, adjusted her collar with dignity, and stepped closer, not in fear but in defiance, whispering something that only Derek could hear, something that made his face go pale before he covered it with forced laughter, pretending he wasn't rattled, yet his eyes betrayed him, because Alana had just reminded him of a secret he never wanted exposed, a secret that connected his cruelty to a hidden weakness, and though no one else heard it, everyone felt that the ground beneath the Bullies' empire had just begun to crack, and from that day on, Jefferson High would never look at either of them the same way again. The tension from that day carried into the following week, whispers traveling faster than footsteps through Jefferson High, and while Derek tried to walk the halls with his usual swagger, everyone noticed the way his laughter seemed forced, the way his eyes darted toward Alana whenever she passed. Because deep down, he knew the secret she held could dismantle the tough image he had built brick by brick. And Alana, though she never bragged or boasted, who carried herself with even more quiet confidence, her silence now louder than his insults. And it frustrated Derek to no end, making him lash out at smaller, weaker targets to prove he still had control. But each time he did, students glanced toward Alana, as if comparing his cruelty with her dignity, and that comparison made him shrink further, until finally during lunch in the crowded cafeteria, when Ricky mocked a freshman and shoved his tray onto the floor, Alana stood, walked calmly over, picked up the tray, and with eyes that locked onto Derek's crew, she said simply, "Every time you try to break someone, you're only proving what's already broken inside you." And though her words were soft, they sliced through the cafeteria louder than a shout, leaving Derek frozen, his fists clenched but his pride trapped, because he could feel the tide turning against him. And in that moment, what shocked everyone wasn't just Alana's courage, it was how the other students, one by one, began standing with her, as if her strength had awakened something they had all buried in fear. By the time spring sunlight warmed the cracked pavement outside Jefferson High, the balance of power inside its walls had shifted completely. For Derek no longer moved like the untouchable king of the hallways, but like someone constantly looking over his shoulder, haunted by the unspoken truth Alana carried, and the way students now followed her quiet lead. And it all came to a head one afternoon, when Derek, desperate to reclaim his throne, cornered her again near the gym, his voice louder than his courage, as he spat insults meant to draw laughter. But instead of an audience joining in, the crowd that gathered stood still, their faces unreadable, their silence deafening. And when Alana calmly stepped forward, eyes steady, and said, "You can grab my collar, you can shout in my face, but you'll never control me, and you'll never control them again," the effect was shattering, because Derek's hand twitched as if to reach for her. Yet he stopped, realizing he was completely alone, even Ricky and Mason shifting uneasily away from his side. And in that moment, everyone saw the truth, that the bully was just a frightened boy hiding behind noise, while the girl he tried to break had become unshakable. And as Alana walked past him with her head high, the hallway erupted not in mockery, but in applause, the sound echoing like a verdict. And from that day forward, the story of the black girl who stood tall when her collar was grabbed became more than gossip. It became a reminder that courage, even when quiet, has the power to shock everyone and change everything.